Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Produced by Barber and LordeStarfox Radio. Bass, do you read me? Hartman, can you hear me? Copy. Comms must be down again. Prevo, a Barber, anybody, a bass can. Looks like it's just us, boys. Let's head on right down this hole. Whoa, look how large this glacier is. Do me a favor, keep an eye on the comms. We gotta get back to home base at some point. Hey, get out of the water. I understand there's something in there. What? No, back up! It's got him! Oh my goodness, what is that thing? Ah! Shoot it! Fire! My creatures of the night, once again, it is Camp Nightmare Fuel here on Midnight Lycanthropy. We, of course, have my co-host and founder, Miss Barb Hartman, as well as our additional sidekick, Mr. Barber, joining us, and of course, one of my scientists from the Midnight Society, who is on Midnight Lycanthropy quite often as well. I am referring to Monstrous the Podcast, has also joined us tonight. A few topics that could be listed as, no pun intended, hot topics. Yes, I am referring to Organism 46B, which will be the first part of the episode. The second part, the Oklahoma Octopus. Yeah, let's pump the brakes real quick. We do need to check in with our beautiful hosts and make sure everyone is doing well tonight. Miss Hartman, how the heck are you doing?
Oh, that was so sweet, Kenny. Thank you. I'm doing fine. Thank you again for having me. And this is always a good time talking to you guys about this kind of stuff. It's so interesting.
Appreciate you. Definitely glad we've been churning out some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
To the audience, a little bit of a cookie crumb trailer too. Mr. Prevo and myself will be working on a new podcast too. 1 week, this new podcast will be on Monstrous. Yes, the following week, you can catch it over here on Midnight Lycanthropy. It's going to be great stuff. Speaking of Mr. Prevo, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing awesome. Just like you've been working on cranking out stuff, I've been working on it all day today. So I just got out the latest episode of Monstrous the Podcast. I'm also in the midst of working on the first episode of Monstrous Lore, which will be covering something that we covered on here, which is Mel's Hole. And yeah, so busy guy.
Preach. What about you, Mr. Barber? How you doing, guy?
I am doing good. I'm doing a bunch of Bigfoot, and quick shout out as well, because Barb and I are working on a project where we're going to put together our Mount Rushmore of Bigfoot researchers. So that'll be going out September 11th.
Love it. Beautiful stuff. Now we are going to crank up the oven and cause hopefully some nightmares. Isn't that the point of Camp Nightmare Fuel? Let's get ready to roll here. Yet, time out. As much as I would love this first part and even the second part to be occurring, we got to pump the brakes hardcore. All right. This is a fictional creature. Wait a second. Fictional. Okay. Is some sort of creature from a creepypasta, the Organism 46B story. It is believed to be a large, intelligent, shape-shifting octopus or squid-like monster discovered by a Russian scientist in the subglacial Lake Vostok in the Antarctic. The story features elements of scientific exploration. At the same time, there is a lot else added in to the Organism 46B story that actually has nothing to do with any sort of real science. This was claimed to be created by fictional author C. Michael, and he claims this has no sort of scientific credibility. Key aspects of the Organism 46B story. Not a real discovery. It is portrayed as a large cephalopod-like entity. It possesses remarkable abilities such as shape-shifting, camouflage, and the mind power to paralyze your prey from a distance with some sort of toxic stare or substance. Questionable again. It is said to be found in Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake in the Antarctic. Narrative. The story often includes claims that the creature was actually truly captured and studied by the good old Russian government for weapon research. How this story all unfolds is you have a group of scientists / soldiers that have found this strange area as they drill through to this subglacial lake. They make their way down. As this group of scientists and soldiers, they see this supposed organism. Of course, scientists get in the water as they approach it. It then paralyzes one person, consumes them, attacks somebody else. Somehow they escape, then they capture this. Yet you got this guy telling you he made this up as a creative aspect. Yet everywhere else you look, people are throwing it out left and right that it was just some sort of big cover-up. I do not subscribe to any of this as fact. It's very interesting, entertaining, yet I like analytics, and there's nothing to back this up. Well, I'm going to toss this over to my brilliant scientists, followed by my two brilliant hosts. Let's see what you all have to think about this.
So let's take a look at Organism 46B. So just like Kenny just said, Organism 46B is a mythical cephalopod-like creature from the work of fiction writer C. Michael Forsyth. He doesn't ever try to convince anybody that it's a real discovery or anything. This 33-foot long tentacled beast who's able to shapeshift. It's venomous. It has paralytic toxins. It can do all of these wonderfully horrible things. It's super intelligent, more intelligent than we are and everything. So this kind of fits in with all of the other Antarctic conspiracy theories that go out there. There's been several that have popped up that have talked about different sea creatures that have popped up around Antarctica, not to mention all the stories that go along supposedly with an intelligent race that where there's a hole at Antarctica where you can go down into the hollow earth. So, I mean, all of these things, of course, are in Antarctica because it's not like we can just, easily hop on a boat and go to Antarctica and look around for this thing. Not to mention Lake Vostok, which is actually a freshwater lake. It's weird. It's a freshwater lake that sets underneath there. That entertains a whole nother problem because when you look at cephalopods like squid, octopus, and cuttlefish, things like that, they can't survive in fresh water. They can only survive in salt water. The reason being is because of osmosis. They don't have the ability to filter and move salts around in the body to keep their body working properly in fresh water, as far as we know. So no one has ever really discovered a freshwater octopus of any kind anywhere. Cephalopods are strictly saltwater. Now, that being said, somebody somewhere is going to say, oh, yeah, well, there's jellyfish that live in freshwater, which is true. There actually are a few jellyfish that live in fresh water, and we didn't know about them for a long time. There is a lake, I believe it is in South America, and trying to think of the name of the jellyfish, but it's kind of few and far between. So, is it possible that there are cephalopods that can live in fresh water? We can say if there's one that's undiscovered, it's always possible, but it's not going to be very large. It would probably be very small. We also have to look at the feeding habits and everything else we know of octopi. We know that they're extremely successful. There would have to be a reason for them to come into fresh water or even brackish water, which is very difficult for them to do. Sharks do go into fresh water. We know that they do this. The story of Jaws is based on that, on a shark that has gone up into fresh water. We do know that they occur up in the Mississippi. I believe they've even gotten up into the Great Lakes. I think Brian earlier said something about that whenever we were talking before the show. And these are only certain species of shark, bull sharks primarily, because they have the ability to filter that salt the way that they need to. It's not like you're going to see hammerhead sharks up, way up in Illinois or the Mississippi or even around Tennessee. They can't handle stuff like that. So we have to apply the science, even though nobody really likes to apply the science. So yeah, great story, but doesn't really hold much water. Pardon the pun. Barb, what do you think?
Well, there's a few things that are problematic about this. And I think the very first one is that this lake is a real lake, but it's reported to sit nearly 2.5 miles beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. So, okay, what? How is are we to believe that a team of scientists or kind of like dug 2.5 miles down to get into this lake, and then they saw this organism 46b? Is that how the story supposedly goes? I mean, that is so problematic to begin with.
Yeah, I believe what happened in the story is that there were, just like you said, they dig this big hole through the ice. It's 2-something miles down. They send down a group of divers, and the divers, for some reason, stop responding. And I think there's like 4 or 5 divers, and they're able to pull one back. And the only thing that he can say is that, it's torn them apart or whatever. And I'd have to really dig into the story again, but it's supposed to be a scary story, just like all of the other creepy pastas. People were just seeing how good of a creepy story they could write, and what kind of a monster they could come up with.
Right, and that and it certainly is creepy. I have an intense fear of viewing these guys know of viewing like underwater photos. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so I can't even stand the thought of like trying to research, find pictures of this thing. But but I think that in itself is its now what okay, in reality, Russian, U.S. and British teams, they have drilled ice cores from above the lake to study it.
Whenever we look at these urban legends, these creepypastas and stuff like that, we have to take into account the really good ones like this are the ones that are set in real world settings, but they have just enough ambiguity to them that it's hard to prove or disprove, just enough to make it to where people are going, well, it could be, it could totally be there, and you can't disprove it. So since you can't disprove it, it must be real. But that's the way creepypastas are, the ones that everybody loves. Brian, what do you think, sir?
I'd never heard of it until very recently. So it just says the tale surfaced via a supposed defector, Dr. Anton Padalaka, and has the hallmarks of a modern cryptid hoax or creepypasta. Like Vostok is indeed real, but the science doesn't support the existence of such a creature. So
I think it's a creepy, it is a creepy story. If you think about it, this massive cephalopod that is, all that is so many miles down under the ice, and then it's this lake, that's under there. But if you don't want to look at the scientific facts, then it's a cool story. Maybe it's real. I don't know.
Well, I think it takes the idea of the Kraken and just, expounds upon that. When you've got a creature who has 8 tentacles, and, you look at the old movies or old stories of this thing ripping through the hulls of a ship and throwing people around. Look at Pirates of the Caribbean whenever this Kraken attacks. And now give it intelligence far beyond ours. Also give it the ability to have psionic powers. It's venomous. It's this indestructible thing almost that's swimming around in the ocean. And like Barb was talking about, people have a lot of fear of just seeing things in the water, much less actually being in the water. Because when Jaws came out, it changed everybody, because you got to where nobody wanted to go swimming in the ocean anymore, because Jaws, you'd hear that music every time you got in the water. So yeah, there's a lot of fear factor that goes into that, again, which is what makes creepypastas and urban legends just so much fun to tell.
well, and part of it too is if you take away the special abilities, there are things out there that are even bigger than this. Take the colossal squid, the giant squid. You're talking, the colossal one that they pulled up was close to 1,200 pounds. The longest one, giant squid, is longer, but it's not as heavy. You're talking 60 feet, fighting sperm whales underneath the ocean. So it's not that it's just the superpowers that are fake, and the fact that it's in fresh water. And where I lived in Buchanan, if you went straight to Lake Michigan back in 1935, they actually had a shark bite off the beach, right around St. Joe. So that was before they put the electric fence up across the Great Lake from where the Mississippi comes in.
I did not hear that, Brian. I have to do some research on that. Wow, that's really how do they speculate how it got in? Is that what happened? It got in.
It came up the river system. They had bull sharks like in Kentucky and
Oh yeah.
The smaller lakes. It literally just came right up the river system, and that's why they have that barrier now in Chicago.
Wow.
It's an electric barrier to keep out invasive species, and that's what's keeping the bull sharks out. Some of them get through. That's how they were getting through, and that's why you haven't heard of anything since. It's because that electric barrier keeps all those things south of us.
Interesting.
Gnarly stuff. Great by everybody right there so far. I do love it. Well, everyone ready to put the stamp of disapproval on Organism 46B before we move on to another one that I'm going to put my stamp of disapproval on to an extent?
Yeah, I'd say thumbs down on 46B. I don't see any way possible for something like that to exist, unless it's something completely alien to our planet. But of course, that would just feed into the whole creepypasta. So no, I'm thumbs down on 46B.
I agree, and come on, like if you're gonna make up a cool story like that, have the animal a little bit more accessible to easy to get access to.
Yep, I think we're sealed the deal on this one. It was created by an author, but maybe he just took into account the as Robert pointed out, the Kraken, which the legend turned out is probably just referring to the giant squid or colossal squid. So That's probably we always say legends have a kernel of truth to them, and this might be it.
Yeah, great stuff right there for sure from everybody. I don't really see any reason why at some point in time it couldn't potentially develop an attribute that allows it to be in fresh water. The reason I say that is, well, let's look at saltwater crocodiles real quick. They have a special gland that allows them to be in the ocean and filter that all out. And they're seen very far out in the ocean. Crocodiles were able to evolve. Interesting stuff. Doesn't mean I am going to subscribe to what we're diving into next. No pun intended. We have what everyone calls the Oklahoma octopus. It is believed to be a modern day cryptid and quote unquote urban legend about a giant freshwater octopus said to inhabit Oklahoma's lakes. It is believed to be responsible for unexplained drownings. Well presented in the fictional media for the most part. Love this TV show, Lost Tapes, that was on Animal Planet. There really is nothing for the most part that ties into this. The legend likely stems from a combination of local accounts and potentially a blend with Native American folklore and also local humor. This isn't the only lake where supposedly something like this is reported. Bizarre for sure, yet again, I'm not ready to say it's quote unquote an octopus. I do know recently there was a woman that was a pretty well known actress on a show that ended up vanishing in this lake. Her child said that something pulled her down. She literally pushed her kid up onto the boat where he was found just floating, and that was his story. There are giant catfish in fresh water. Whether people want to admit it, you can look it up. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. Giant catfish could easily consume something. It's a quick little search online. And I mean, look at some of the ones that people like Jeremy Wade have pulled up. It's not really far-fetched. Everyone, again, thinks, hey, I'm a person. Just because I'm in fresh water, no catfish is going to attack me. No northern pike is going to attack me. Northern pikes are huge as well. Okay, they are a relative of the barracuda. It's not far-fetched to think that that thing potentially could have a good haul at you as well. Or, yeah, as you're sinking into the water, does it not look like something's pulling you down? Meaning if you've lost all your energy and you are sinking now, does it not look like something would be pulling you down? Pretty interesting stuff. I am going to toss this over to my residential scientist, and we are going to throw it around like a good old hot potato, eh?
All right, sounds good. So, yeah, we've got 3 lakes in Oklahoma. So, we're looking at 3 separate lakes, which all 3 seem to be somehow the home to the Oklahoma octopus. We're running into the same problem again. We're looking at fresh water, and yeah, the octopus simply can't do that. Now, there is mention of a Lake Conway, which is in Arkansas, where an octopus was actually found. Um, Physically found. There is real honest scientific truth behind this. The only problem is we know for a fact that it was a common octopus and it was probably somebody's pet. And for some reason they thought, well, I could just dump it in this fresh water and it will be fine. Well, it was found, it wasn't found alive. Um, and just like Kenny mentioned, uh, when you look at like shows like River Monsters with Jeremy Wade, he more often than not can point out how these catfish can be extremely dangerous once they reach a certain size, and they don't have to be that big. A fish can easily outmaneuver you and outswim you in the water. So you're looking at a catfish that maybe you could say 20-pound catfish, which sounds huge, but it's not really that big as far as catfish go. A 20-pound catfish could have a hold of your foot and pull you down. Not to mention there's other animals. I grew up on a lake. I grew up on Lake Charles here in Arkansas. And we used to run trot lines. And I remember one morning going out to the trot line and seeing something floating. And me, or my father and I, we're going out there and we're joking about how it looks like there's an alligator on the trot line. And when we got out there, we weren't really sure that we were wrong until we got up to it, and it was an alligator snapping turtle, and its shell was huge. So this was a big turtle. So these turtles, which are predatory, can grab a hold of somebody and pull them down too. It doesn't require there to be an octopus. Another thing we have to look at, like I said, I grew up on a lake, and I know for a fact that we had several times, probably once every year to every 2 years, there was a there, and it usually involved something like alcohol or somebody doing something silly that they shouldn't be doing. So you have to look at the human factor and how many people are on the lake. What are they doing? Lakes aren't really safe places. It doesn't require there to be a mythological octopus in there. Again, same stuff as what we were looking at with Organism 46B. It's just not plausible. It makes for a great story. It's a great urban legend. Again, it's a creepy pasta, and it's fun to blame it on something other than ourselves, but chances are it's probably just our own lack of being aware and being a little bit silly that has caused people to get hurt. Barb, what do you think about that?
Well, I have an octopus to add to this. We have the Northwest tree octopus. It's very close to my area. And these creatures supposedly begin their lives like any other octopus as an egg in the water. In this case, the eggs are in the Hood Canal, which is part of the Puget Sound. I live on the Puget Sound. I'm much further south than the Hood Canal. Shortly after hatching, the young octopus leave the waters of the canal and make their way to the forests of the Olympic Peninsula. Due to a combination of moisture of the mountain air and a special adaptation of their skin, these many-limbed beasts can survive without being in the water. They use their arms and suckers to climb from tree to tree, seeking prey. Like they eat things supposedly like frogs, rodents, other small animals. And because of their ability to change color, they're very hard to detect. Once it's time for them, they reach maturity, and it's travel back to the Puget Sound, and just start the cycle all over. Now, this also is a invention, of a writer, Lyle Zapato. It was an internet hoax created in 1998. And this fictitious endangered species of cephalopod was reportedly able to live both on the water and in land. And it was said to live in the Olympic National Forest and nearby rivers. Now, obviously, we have very similar. This is very similar. Is it plausible? I think that they could definitely, on land, they could travel a short distance. We've seen them. Oh my gosh, they are so smart. I've seen videos of them getting, through these small cracks of doors or a small opening in their where they're contained, in their tanks, and they're getting out and going wherever. So it's possible the Puget Sound is saltwater, and there are octopus in the Puget Sound, but to say that they're living in trees, but you know what? This is one of the things that I really do love about the Pacific Northwest. They are very, they're very all in with this. There's an internet, all these websites with scientific documentation, and all this is made up. They're leaning all in that this is real. And here, you just need to go onto the internet. And if you have a sighting, report it here. If you have any questions, place them here. I mean, they're really dedicated to continuing with this hoax, this myth. So I don't know, you guys, I think this is probably the Oklahoma octopus is probably like the Northwest tree octopus. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's not probable. But it doesn't take a whole lot to pull a person underwater. I mean, if you take a 200-pound person, they're going to displace about 204 pounds of water. So it's only going to take just a little over 4 pounds to pull down a 200-pound person floating on the water. Even if you're swimming, you're looking at less than 20 pounds of pressure to drag somebody under. So a 15-pound catfish, if it decided to, could grab your foot, probably give you an issue, and it wouldn't, even the best deep sea divers only hold their breath for a couple minutes. I think catfish are probably more to blame than an octopus for what's happening.
I'd have to agree with Brian, and it doesn't take much to pull somebody underwater, just like what he was saying and I was saying earlier. Barb, when you're looking up that about the tree octopus, I don't think they get very big. I remember how it first came out and everything. We remember we had a long discussion on cryptozoology.com about it, and we all had a good laugh about it too, because it kind of reminded us of the what is that koala bear that supposedly jumps out of the trees and attacks you or whatever? But that was all linked to koala bears actually eating eucalyptus tree leaves and basically getting drunk and falling out of the trees. So I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff that goes along with that, and having that website, the Pacific Northwest Tree Octopus. I'm actually looking at the site right now. There's a book I've got. I think it's on the Ozark Howler, and the guy who wrote the book actually was of the opinion that cryptozoologists know for a fact that all of the creatures that they're talking about and that we are after, trying to prove, that we know for a fact that they're all fake, and it's basically us just LARPing, and this is a story and we're just making it up, but we act like it's real and it's our reality. And that's really damaging to the whole cryptozoological movement, because that's not at all what this is supposed to be. We're not going around and making up these different creatures and then trying to convince everybody else that our imagination is real. We're out there trying to decipher from the real stuff and the fake stuff, and trying to discover what's really going on out there. So stories like this, although they're is a ton of fun, it can be pretty damaging to what's really going on, especially when you have somebody who has an interest in cryptozoology and they're new to the situation and they don't know what's real and what's not real, and they're easily manipulated by certain stories. So we have to be careful. We have to decipher the truth from the fiction.
Preach, my friend. That is absolutely beautiful stuff by everybody. My final thoughts on all of this before I would love to see if you all three of you give the thumbs down as well. After that, I would like you to give a quick little plug where everyone can find you, and then we are going to conclude this episode of Camp Nightmare Fuel. Personally, I'm going to give 4 thumbs down to both of these encounters right here. Interesting stuff. Yeah, I don't buy into any of it.
Yeah, fun stories, definitely thumbs down. Scientifically just not plausible on any of the 3 that we talked about. So I mean, is it possible that somebody saw an octopus up on the shore close to something? Maybe it got curious and was reaching for a bird or a mouse or something on the shore. Always possible. Octopi do really cool things. They can do all kinds of things that other animals can't do. They are extremely intelligent. Many of them are venomous, but as far as climbing up into the trees and swinging like a monkey from tree to tree through the forest, man, that would be fun to watch. But that's just not, it's just not plausible. So thumbs down.
Yeah, I think also, but to answer Brian's question, the size of them is, they are 30 to 33 centimeters from tentacle tip to mantle as adults. So not a huge, certainly not a huge, and okay. Is it plausible for the Northwest tree octopus? Because we know, like I said, we know that they are amphibious. Maybe there's something that in their, and maybe in evolution, and because of their close proximity, they could, climb a tree. I don't know why they would climb a tree. They'll stay on the ground. If I'm gonna have to deflect to everybody. I'm gonna have to go all in with you guys, and this just seems like a big hoax. Well, it is an internet hoax. That's all over the place. That it was created basically to play into the gullibility of people that that wanted to just find a cool story that's creepy and a little bit scary, but like, hey, this is a cool thing, let's do it. And I think that's they've done a good job of that.
Yeah, somehow this evolved from the Native American legend of being a giant leech. Am I gonna say it's impossible? No, because I hate to be the one to say it, but science doesn't know everything. Science doesn't believe in Bigfoot. Science doesn't believe in Dogman. So I'm gonna say it's not probable. How's that?
Love it. Absolutely epic. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us tonight.
Until next time, you can find me on Monstrous the Podcast, which is on YouTube, Rumble, and pretty much everywhere social media gathers. You can find me on Midnight Lycanthropy every so often, hanging out with Kenny. And of course, like you found me here, every time they want me to show up and speak my mind, I'm more than willing to show up here. And keep an eye out, because Kenny and I are going to have a new show on both of our channels, and it's going to bounce around just like Camp Nightmare Fuel does. So we'll have a bunch of fun with that.
Okay, and my name is Barb Hartman. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Barb Hartman at No Drama Bigfoot and Cryptids, and Brian and I are doing we have a show coming up, a live show that we're going to be doing on September 11th. And I'll let Brian give you more information on that. He and I are both we're Sasquatch researchers, right, Brian? So we're going to do a little collaboration there. And you can well, obviously you can find me on Camp Nightmare Fuel. Here we are. Kenny and I created that a few months ago. And also I am on Midnight Lycanthropy. I'm one of the Midnight Society members. So that's me.
Yep, my name's Brian Barber, and of course you can find me hanging out here with LordeStarfox and Barb and Robert on multiple occasions. You can also find me on Bigfoot Outlaw Network on Friday nights at 9 p.m. where I talk a little bit about everything, but you can find me there. You can also find my personal page if you want to reach out to me if you have any encounters or anything that you would like to talk about or maybe be on the show. And yes, Barb and I are collaborating on a live show for September 11th, where we are going to create our own Mount Rushmore of Bigfoot researchers and the reasons why they belong there. So look forward to that. And I really appreciate Barb being co-head of this, because she's already helped rein me in, and she'll help keep me in check, my mouth in check.